I will be discussing, or I will continue my topic last time, the introduction of accounting. So this will be the introduction of accounting part 2 before we move along to the start of the accounting equation. So under the accounting equation, we will define the accounting, then we will move on to the rules of debit and credit, then we will be starting on the reporting process. So ilang sessions na lang yun, then we will officially start with our discussion on that now. So as we move along, our topic for tonight will be the introduction to accounting part 2. So what will be our learning objectives, as I have said last time? So our learning objectives will be the fundamental concepts of accounting, the basic accounting principles, the qualitative characteristics of useful financial information, conceptual framework of accounting, the underlying assumptions of accounting, the elements of financial accounting, the recognition and measurement of the elements of financial statements, and the concepts of capital and capital expenditures. Okay, so before we proceed with our topic, I just want to review of our make a short review of our previous discussions. So when we say accounting, as we define the accounting is a service activity. Its function is to provide quantitative information, primarily financial in nature, about economic entities that is intended to be useful in making economic decisions. So it's more on financial, when we say accounting, it provides financial information for the users of the financial statements or for the users to make decisions about a certain company. Okay, next we have defined the natures and functions of accounting. So there are different natures and functions of accounting, but the very nature of accounting is to provide economic or quantitative information to provide decisions. Otherwise, accounting is not useful if we could not provide necessary information about an economic entity for their decision. Pagka hindi natin magagamit for decision yung isang information, then it will be useless, no? Okay? Now, accountancy in the Philippines. The accountancy in the Philippines, of course, all members of the accountancy profession must be a certified public accountants. And of course, again, CPAs have their own language, and CPAs are a member of a national organizations. Then, pinakita ko sa inyo last time who are the members of the Zambales chapter, no, of the Philippine. Our professional organization is the Philippine Institute of Certified Public Accountants. Now, we also discussed the branches of accounting. So when we say what are the different branches of accounting, we have bookkeeping, auditing, taxation, financial management, cost accounting. So those are the different branches. And who are these users of accounting information? I have already discussed that the users of financial accounting informations, we have internal and external. Who are these internal users of financial statements? When we say internal, they are the managers, they are the employees who wants to know about the financial statements because they want to know if they are having progress, if they perform well, if they have their performance bonus, and so on and so forth. Also, the external users of the accounting information, ito naman po yung mga outside the company, let's say that the regulatory agencies such as BIR, such as the municipality for the computation of taxes. We also have the investors and the creditors and potential mga potential partners and potential investors. So yun yung mga yon. And then I have also discussed the forms of business organizations, and the different forms of business organizations are sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. I have also included in my discussions the advantage and disadvantages of those forms or those organizations as to the also as to their number kung ilan ang owner. Of course, the sole has a 1, the partnership has 2, and the corporations has 5 or more owners. Now we will discuss on our topic for tonight. So the first topic for our for this week or for this session is the fundamental concept of accounting. So I believe as of now, you already know what is accounting. What is the purpose of accounting? Bakit merong accounting? Kasi paulit-ulit na nating sinasabi yan, no? Now, let's have the fundamental concept of accounting. When we say fundamental concepts of accounting, we have 3 fundamentals of accounting. Okay. Number 1 is the entity concept. Okay, when we say entity concept, an accounting entity is an organization that stands apart from other organizations. As you can see on the picture, the business entity is separate. Here's the building, representing the business entity, which is a separate and distinct from the owners. Okay, it has its own legal entity. So, yan yun, ano? So, an entity concept, ibig sabihin, may separate personality siya aside from the owner. The transaction between the business is separate and distinct between the transactions of the owners. So the owners and transactions should not be accounted for under under the business, di ba? So yun yung tinatawag nating entity concept. Hindi pwedeng yung mga personal transactions, let's say personal bank transaction ng owner, ilalagay niya ba sa business? Of course not. It is not allowed because under the fundamental concept, a business enterprise is different and distinct from its owners. Next is periodicity concept. Okay, when we say periodicity concept, an entity's life can be meaningfully subdivided into equal time periods for reporting purposes. Okay, of course, for reporting purposes, it is not good, no, kung halimbawa ang ni-report natin last year is only for a period of 6 months for 2019. Then let's say for 2020, we have reported for 12 months ang ni-record natin. And then we compare. Then it's useless kasi hindi mo pwedeng, you cannot compare two things that are na hindi pareho ang period. Otherwise, magiging mali yung decisions, no? Siyempre, possible yung sales nung last year or nung 6 months compare with the 1 year, it's really different. So that's periodicity concept. Wherein meron tayong period na sinusunod. If it's quarterly, then do it quarterly. If it's annual, then do it annual. Otherwise, it's useless. And of course, when we say the third one is the stable monetary unit concept. There is a reasonable unit of measure, and that is the purchasing power is relatively stable. Okay, in accounting, we assume na the money or the monetary value of our peso, kasi sorry for the picture, it's a dollar. The Philippine peso, of course, has a reasonable unit of measure. Of course, the 20 pesos will still be 20 pesos next after 10 years because its purchasing power is stable. So, hindi ibig sabihin, kapag yung 20 pesos today, it will be 20 pesos after 10 years. Actually, the 20 pesos, when I was in high school, 20 pesos pa rin naman siya ngayon. It so happened na nag-iiba-iba lang ng itsura. But definitely, its purchasing power ay makakabili pa rin siya, di ba? When we say, of course, hindi na yung mga lumang pera, kaya nga, pinapalit natin yan eh. Nagtataka lang din ako, class, bakit ang dollar hindi nagpapalit ng figure? Yung dollars na yan, simula bata ako, parang feeling ko yan pa rin yan, ano? Sa Philippines, parang for my 35 years in existence, nag-iiba-iba siya. But anyway, the important thing there is yung purchasing power ng peso, hindi yun pwedeng mawala. Hindi yun pwedeng ma-violate. Kapag mag-change tayo ng money, di ba, pwede mo nga siyang i-exchange yun sa bank eh. Pwede mo siyang i-exchange sa bank para mapatuloy mo siyang maibili. Okay? Okay, next. After discussing the fundamental concept, when we say fundamental concepts, ibig sabihin nandun na yun. Fundamental, kumbaga, fundamental, it's in the enterprise, it's in the accounting concept. Hindi mo pwedeng alisin yan. Yung concept na yan when we are trying to project a financial information for a certain business enterprise. Okay, next. Next are the basic principles naman, no? Ano naman yung mga basic principles na sinusunod ng accountants in recording financial information? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7. The first one is the objectivity principle. When we say objectivity principles, accounting records and statements are what? Based on the most reliable data. Later on, yung dinidiscuss ko or yung nababanggit ko na qualitative characteristics of financial statements which should be reliable, relevant. Ito na yun, mamaya-maya, as we go along, madidiscuss na natin siya. So when we say reliable data, you can rely on it. You can rely on it. Ibig sabihin, the data will be accurate and useful as possible. Kasi kung hindi siya accurate, then it will not become useful to the owner. Kasi sayang lang naman. When we say reliable, data are verifiable. Let's say, present natin yung financial statements natin. Nag-increase based dun sa financial statements natin. We're trying to project a good reputation of a company. Ang ginawa natin, or let's say, tingnan na, nag-increase ng 10% or 50% ang sales natin for the next year. So, ang impression ng mga nagbabasa nun, wow, lumalaki yung company kasi for the past 5 years, let's say it's increasing, di ba? Now, do we have any chance of verifying it? If yes, then it is reliable. Kumbaga, you can rely on that financial statement. Otherwise, you cannot rely on it. Ideally kasi, accounting records are based on the information that flows from activities na dinodocument ng mga objectives dun sa mga. Okay, ganito kasi yan, class. In real situation, before we record the transaction, meron tayong tinatawag na source documents. Now, if we verify it, nandun ba yung source documents na nagsasabi that we really had a sale of this million? Then if your answer is yes, then the data is reliable. And if the data is reliable, we have achieved the objectivity principle, no? So, are we clear on that? So, objective ka in trying to project your financial statement accurately. Okay? Objective ka in a way na wala kang inumit, kaya yun na yung presentation mo ngayon ng financial statement. As we go along, madadaanan pa ulit natin yan, ano? Okay, historical cost principle. When we say historical cost principle, class, ito yung assets are recorded or should be recorded at their actual cost. So let's say bumili ako ng machinery. The machine, nabili ko siya. Okay, class, may mga instances kasi na ganito. The machine cost, meron tinatawag na suggested retail price, di ba? The machine cost 750,000 for an instance. Then you have bought it on a sale. Instead of 750, meron kang 10% discount. So, magpukumpit pa ako. 750 times 10%, that's 75,000. Less 750. Magkano yan, class? 750. Buti may calculator. It's 675,000. So, from 70, you have bought it for 675. Now, If that is the case, how are you going to record? Of course, you are going to record on the cost on the cost that was you have purchased, and not the management what they think they are they are worth. Let's say worth 750 million siya. Yun ang thinking ng management, but no, class, we cannot record it that way. Of course, next, revenue recognition principle. When we say revenue, it is the sales or the services, yun yung result no ng services na ni-render natin and the goods that we have we're selling. So those are revenue. So when do we recognize the revenue? We recognize when goods and services are rendered or delivered. Hindi mo siya i-recognize, let's say, nakagkaroon ka ng 1 million deal sa isang client. Tapos pinapadeliver niya to next month, for an instance. So today is October, and you cannot report it for the month of October because you can only recognize the revenue kung when you receive it or kung na-render mo na yung services. Of course, others, ibang usapan yon na hindi mo na babayaran. But still, because you already render or because you already deliver, then it's already a revenue. The next principle is expense recognition principle. Expenses should be recognized when used to produce revenue. Okay, so when we say expenses recognized, same as with the revenue, hindi mo pwedeng i-recognize yung expense without using it. Okay, hindi ka pwedeng mag-recognize na bibili ako ng ganito. I will buy a certain supplies. You will buy pero hindi ka pa bumili. Okay, sorry. Yes, you will buy. Let's say office supplies. You have already bought. Sorry. Mali. Okay, now, you have already bought supplies, pero hindi mo pa siya ginamit. May mga ginagawa tayo na kung ano lang yung nagamit natin. Let's say, ang supplies na binili mo is 10,000. At the end of the month or at the end of the year or the end of the accounting period, ang nagamit mo pa lang, let's say out of the 10,000 is 5,000 or hindi, wag 5,000 kasi equally 7,000. So, ano yung i-record nating expense? It is the 7,000 or the 3,000 remaining. It's the 7,000 wherein yun yung nagamit natin for that period to produce certain revenue. Okay, yung mga raw materials natin. We bought raw materials for 100,000. Then we already used 80% of that, which cost us 80,000. So, ano gagamitin natin at the end of the year na cost of raw materials used? Of course, the 80,000. Okay. Next, adequate disclosure. Okay, when we say adequate disclosure, all relevant information that would affect the user's understanding must be disclosed in the financial statements. So, class, kasi pag yung financial statements, one line item lang siya, cash, receivables, short-term investments, inventory, etc. Ngayon, isang figure lang yung nakikita mo doon. Let's say cash, 5 million. Now, yung composition nun, nandun sa notes. And how to measure it, nandun din sa notes. Okay? Okay, next. Materiality. Okay, when we say materiality, financial reporting is concerned with information that is significant enough to affect evaluation and decisions. Okay, materiality, pag sinabi natin materiality concept class, materiality depends on the size and the nature of the item judged under different circumstances. Okay. Of its omission. Let's say, halimbawa ganito. You are a multi-billionaire company. Okay? Meron ngayong multi-billionaire lending company, billions ang asset mo. Meron ngayong hindi lang nagbayad ng assets na ng utang niya sa inyo, ng na-lend niya sa inyo for 100,000, assuming you are a billionaire. Now, you are trying to compute for your bad debts. Will you consider that as bad debts or not? So, depende. Will it be material? Pag inumit mo ba yon? Let's say you're trying to compute yung percentage ng mga bad debts mo last year and this year, then yung mga previous years mo, let's say for 5 years, you're trying to compute. Now, ang tanong, kapag inumit mo ba yung 100,000 na bad debts doon, malaki ba yung magiging impression doon? Or other way around, let's say may utang na 50 million sa company. Pag inumit mo ba yon in computation of your bad debts, will it have a material effect? Between 100,000 and 50 million, of course, ang may effect po is yung 50 million because you are a multi-billionaire lending company, di ba? Now, paano po kung ang assets mo lang, let's say ang asset mo lang is 1 million. Yun lang yung meron ka. Then meron kang 100,000 na pautang. Will you consider it on the computation of yung percentage ng bad debts mo sa receivable? Yes or no? Of course, yes. Kasi it will be material on that 1 million compared with the billions of pesos. Pag inumit mo yon, hindi yun mararamdaman. That's materiality. That when you are deciding whether an item or aggregate of items is material, tingnan mo yung size, yung nature niya. You have to evaluate them together for you to understand if it's material. Ma'am, question. Bakit siya isinasama? Now, ganito yung class. When we are preparing financial statements, may mga bagay kasi minsan na, let's say yung mga related party transaction, nagkaroon ng personal sales o nagkaroon ng sales doon or nagkaroon ka ng sales sa director nyo. Let's say may product kayo. Bumili, director ng company. Tapos ang ginawa nyo, diniscount nyo. More than dun sa regular na discount. Let's say ang regular nyo na discount is 10%. Then nag-discount nyo si manager o si director for 40%. Now, will it be material? If yes, so depende yan. Again, sa size and nature, magkano kaya yung binili niya? Kung ang binili lang naman niya 10,000 tapos din-discount mo ng 40%, then parang hindi siya magiging material. Pero kung ang binili niya is million, then 40% will be a big figure, di ba? Then are you going to disclose it on the nose? Is it considered to be related party transaction? So that's materiality concept. And then consistency principle. The firm should use the same accounting period to achieve comparability over time. That's what I am trying to tell you kanina, no? Doon sa fundamentals. Now class, what's the difference between the fundamental principle and the basic principles? So when we say fundamental principles, fundamental siya in a sense na nandun na siya sa business itself. Kasi as we go along with accounting, as we compute, as we use the accounting, we are talking of the business enterprise. At andun na siya, di ba? Business entity, periodicity. Kumbaga, fundamental siya on the accounting na meron tayong iniisip lagi na separate ang owner dun sa business. May monetary value at saka ano yung isa? Periodicity concept wherein nahahati yung life niya dun sa stated period for 1 year, quarterly, etc. Now, itong basic principle class, ito naman din, we are trying to include this when we are now preparing the financial statements. These are the things that we are going to consider. Okay? Yan yung mga i-consider natin for the preparation of financial statements. Okay. Are we clear on that? Now, next. Next is the qualitative characteristic of useful information. Under this class, we're trying to talk on, since last meeting, useful information, financial information for decision making, in making economic decision. Now, Kapag walang qualitative, when we say qualitative, the quality of its information must be good. Otherwise, hindi, di ba? Pag hindi quality ang information, then it's useless. Okay. How can we so sure na yung financial information is magagamit natin for our decision? Otherwise, magkakamali tayo ng decision. Pag nag-check kayo sa internet, may mga decisions na nauwi siya sa sa pagkalugi. And it's not just cents na nalugi sila. It's millions of pesos po ang nalulugi pag nagkaroon ng maling decision using the financial statements. Diba? Now, we have two qualitative characteristics. Nahahati siya sa dalawa class. It's the fundamental and the enhancing. Okay, from the term itself, when we say fundamental, it's there already. Nandun na siya sa financial statements. Otherwise, it will not be useful. When we say enhancing, from the term enhancing, what do we mean by enhancing? We're trying to enhance. We're trying to make it, we're trying to figure, kung ginagawa natin na mas mapaganda natin yung financial statements for us to present it in good manners, in good ways. Okay, remember that accounting is a service activity. Remember that accounting is an art, di ba? So we're trying to present the financial statements in good form. Okay? In good form wherein our users can read it easily. Maintindihan niya yon for them to decide. Okay? Now, under fundamental qualitative characteristics, we have 5. Okay? The first one is relevance. So when we say relevance, financial information is capable of making a difference in a decision. Okay, when we say, what makes the financial statements useful? Kailan ba nagiging useful ang isang information? Of course, if you can make it for a decision. When we say relevant financial information, they are capable in making decisions if it has one predictive value. Okay, based on the financial statements, can you predict something? Okay, how can you predict something? Halimbawa, okay, walang pandemic ha. Let's not assume that there is no pandemic, di ba? So pagka ganun class, let's assume tumataas siya. Then, pag tumataas yung sales mo, do you think that information kapag mapipredict mo ba? Let's say ang increase mo from mula year 1 to year 2, 10%, 15%, 18%, so more or less, ma-average mo yung class, di ba? So that's predictive value. Confirmative value, can you verify it? Then that's relevance. Okay? Next, faithful representation. When we say faithful representation, how will you say that you represent it faithfully? How will you say you present it faithfully? When the financial information must represent faithfully the phenomena it purports to represent. Okay, parang ganito. Kapag losing or kapag kalugi ang company, ang financial statements, makikita mo dapat na nalulugi siya. Kapag ka-recovering na siya or pag tumataas naman ang sales niya, makikita mo din doon, di ba? Ibig sabihin, it was faithfully represent. To be faithfully represent, to be faithfully represent, number 1, it should be complete. It should be neutral and free from error. So, ibig sabihin, pagka ganun ang nangyari, ibig sabihin nun, faithfully represented siya, di ba? Tama siya, correct siya, and accurate siya. Yan, next. Actually, ito siya, completeness. Financial information includes all information necessary for a user to understand. Okay, so when we say completeness, from the word completeness, kompleto ba yung information natin? Meron ba tayong assets na natanggal? Kasi class, kapag meron tayong mga na-omit na financial information at pag gumawa tayo ng analysis of financial statements, it will not become useful pag may kulang. So it should be complete. Next, neutrality. Financial information must be free from bias. Okay, when we say free from bias, so ano, it must not be slanted, it must not be emphasized or de-emphasized, otherwise, it will become magkakaroon ng mga unfavorable effects sa users. Okay, halimbawa, pinipili mo lang ba kung ano yung ipe-present mo? Of course not. Lahat yan ipe-present mo. Pag balos, hindi mo na ipe-present. Kapag halimbawa nilagay mo yung 50 million loss, mag-i-incur ng malaking impact yun doon sa financial statements. Are you going to omit that? Of course not. Otherwise, anong gagawin mo? I-deprive mo ng truthful information yung user at magkakamali sila ng decision. Like what happened for Enron, for an instance. So, mali yun, no? Then, free from error. Financial information must be free from errors and omissions. Okay, ito rin yan, no? So, ibig sabihin, neutral siya in a sense na free from bias siya, hindi ka namimili. Free from error, that's the reason why we have audit. Para makita natin if there are errors and fraud doon sa preparation natin ng financial statement. Imagine niyo class, kung isa sa mga to hindi present as we prepare the financial statements, doon sa content ng financial statement. Let's say hindi siya complete. Will it be useful? Hindi na. Hindi siya faithfully represented. Wala, puro errors, may fraud, etc. Okay? So, walang mangyayari, di ba? Pagka ganon, hindi useful. Okay, next. What are the enhancing qualitative characteristics? Okay, when we say enhancing qualitative characteristics, there must be comparability. So, when we say comparability, yung katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, if you present it 1 year, then the other year, 1 year, hindi mo pwede siyang i-omit na, ito 6 months lang, 2019 6 months, tapos 2020 1 year. So how can you compare two things na ganun ang basis? Siyempre, technically, makikita mo, mas malaki ang increase, no? Or mas malaki, parang ang ano nun, sobrang laki ng increase from 2019 to 2020. Masisilaw ngayon yung mga investors, wow, ang laki naman ng tinaas. Only to find out, no, hindi pala siya comparable when you present it. Okay? Kaya nga class, when we present financial statements, usually ang nare-require po ng other regulatory agencies is comparable siya. Yearly siya talaga, no? Yearly siya. Okay, next. Verifiability. Can we verify it? Now, when we say verifiability, financial information must be checked or verified. Okay, katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, when you are trying to invest for an instance, i-check mo ngayon yung financial statements. Then when you verified, wala naman palang source documents, hindi naman pala properly documented yon. Then how can you rely on that? How can you use that information kung hindi mo naman pala kayang i-verify if that information is true, accurate, concise, diba? So it will be useless. Okay? So verifiability helps or assures the users of information to represent faithfully the economic information or yung if it is faithfully represented, di ba? Kumbaga, aside from the auditor, kapag ka na-audit naman na yan, wala kang problema, especially kapag ka mga bigating auditor yung gumawa. Pero class, beware, kasi may nangyari na sa US na gano'n na malaki yung company na nag-audit and yet nagkaroon pa rin ng fraud. Okay? So, hindi lahat ay ganon. No? So, kumbaga, tingnan din natin maigi. Lalo kung ang i-invest mo are millions of pesos. Okay, understandability. When we say understandability, can we, or is the financial statement clear? Concise? So, dun ba sa disclosures mo, very specific yung pagdi-disclose mo ng assets mo, di ba? Then if it is not understandable, how can the users make use of it? So kailangan understandable yung iyong financial statements for it to become useful. And of course, timeliness. Financial information must be available to decision makers in time. Otherwise, kapag po, pagka ang issue is timeliness, ano yung isang issue na possible, hindi na siya magiging relevant. Di ba? Hindi na siya magiging relevant kasi ano, hindi mo na siya magagamit for your decisions. Okay? Kaya kailangan timely. Okay, sige. Balikan lang natin saglit, no? When we say fundamental characteristics, it's relevance, faithful representation, completeness, neutrality, freedom from error. Okay, so relevance and reliability of financial statements was trying to figure out dito sa fundamental qualitative. Relevant siya in a form na pwede siyang magamit for decision. Reliable siya in a way na faithfully represented, complete, neutral, and has freedom from error. So dun yung mako-connect. Now my question is, useful ba siya pag relevance and reliable ang iyong financial statement? Otherwise po. Of course, yes. Otherwise, hindi. Then, of course, it should be comparable, verifiable, understandable, and timely in nature. Kapag po ang binibigay mong reports is very late na, so paano pa ang mangyayaring decision? Nauna na yung competitor natin, di ba? Okay?